coaches, players, and fans.
Broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
With your hosts, Smokin SIlz and Brad Baumruck.
Live.
The referee starts right now.
And now your host.
Boy, I got a problem because I hit an audio button and I can't find it now. All right, what's up, everybody? We are live. Give me a second. Brad, say hello to everybody.
I still hear music.
I know.
I hear music. Everybody awake?
Yeah.
You know, it's Monday. When Scott's
There we go.
problems.
That audio file just disappeared from me. Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. It's the Ref Room. I am Smokin SIlz, along with referee-in-chief, Mr. Brad Baumruck. I hope you guys are having a great day. It's been a busy weekend. We had a lot of out-of-town referees in town working, and lots of tournaments going on and all kinds of good stuff here in Chicago. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I see we have, that is false information. Whoever put that in the comments, that is not true. You must get your facts straight. I did not have anything to do with any coach. I only worked one game in that tournament, and all I did was put one parent out that was abusing my official. And I was happy to just point to him and let him know he needed to leave. That was all. So, no, I didn't have anything to do with any coaches. So, false information. That's fake news.
Weekend. I didn't hear any parents or anything, Scott.
Yeah?
Nothing. Nobody.
I heard. Well, that must be because I gave you earplugs. I sent you along with some earplugs for the weekend. That's all.
No, I had a great weekend. So I mean, we had a little incident from a player that we didn't expect, and nobody was hurt, and the guy was escorted off the ice, but it was definitely heated in a high school game. Let me tell you that. So
imagine that, a heated high school game. No, actually, there were a lot of really good games over the weekend and a lot of competitive games. So it was kind of fun. I mean, anytime, I don't care what level you're working, if you got a competitive game, you're in for a good time. It's, usually it's much better than you could ever imagine at that point. So we have a very special guest with us today. He is a legend in the hockey community. Many of you know him and have maybe played in his men's league. Maybe you've officiated with him. Maybe you've coached against him. Whatever the case may be, he is a great guy and a good friend. And we would like to welcome in our very own Mr. Steve Glickman joins us. What's up, Steve? Welcome.
Thanks for asking me to join the show, Scott and Brad. Yeah. Glad to be here. And Scott, you said that just as I wrote it. So.
Well, yeah, I thought there were a few more accolades that I forgot to mention, but I'm always happy to do that because Steve's one of the good guys. I've had the pleasure of playing in his league for many, many years. And honestly, really, I know you talked about being official, but you did it long before I did. And you were one of the people that were instrumental in helping me get started with my officiating career, because when I did decide I was going to do that, Steve was kind enough to give me some schedulers' names and things and instruct me on what I needed to do to kind of get started and get some games and be able to do this. So, I can publicly thank you now, Steve.
That's a very common tale because I've heard that from the North Shore for many, many years about Steve. He's a great advocate of ours, and he's a great advocate of hockey. So I appreciate him coming on because, he's not only from the coach's side, but the referee side and the player's side. So, and also organizational side. So you have all these interesting things that he knows that we might not know. So I'm interested.
Yeah. Well, Steve has been around.
Welcome, Scott. Thank you. And we're always looking for good officials, and I know that in speaking to kids that are just getting started with officiating, what better way to make some good money, as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid just working his way, out of high school and into college. I used to put something up on our website when I was at the Park District, give more to the game that you love, I think was something similar to that, a slogan that was similar to that. And the kids that would have that passion would go out there and become great officials.
Well, I appreciate what you did for me, and I had no idea that we were having a conversation yesterday, and I really had no idea how many years of refereeing experience you had prior to me knowing you. So maybe you'd like to elaborate on that when you started. A lot of us know you as a hockey director and running a very well attended men's league here in the Chicagoland area. But tell us about your officiating career, and then did that come after your hockey career, or were you playing hockey and reffing at the same time? Because correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think you did have a pro contract for a day, didn't you?
Well, I could elaborate on that in a little bit, but as far as getting started into officiating, I was that high school kid. I was 14, 15 years old that started officiating, and I was always looking older and bigger sized kid, so I'd go out there and work the adult league games, and they'd be thinking, back then there weren't many restrictions as far as rules of games you could work, and I had grown up just a few blocks from the Skokie Stadium, so I would go over there, and they had probably the best at that time, one of the most competitive adult leagues around. And so as a 15, 16, 17-year-old official, I was reffing guys that had played pro hockey, played high-level college hockey. It was Czech hockey back then.
Yeah.
And in fact, we were calling two-line passes back in those days.
That's right. I forgot about those. Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, that's what got me started.
Offsides.
Yeah. I think we had touch icings too back in those days. For that
you might be right.
Anyway.
You might be right.
Yeah, but I loved getting out there and getting on the ice and officiating. And at that time, that's all I was also playing. So I was playing and officiating, and then later on, I got the opportunity to become a hockey director for the Skokie Park District. And I was still, teaching class. I was running hockey for Skokie, teaching classes for them, coaching and officiating. I was wearing my skates more than I was wearing my shoes, and I had to.
We know that.
Give up one of the three. I had to give up. After 5-6 years on the job, I had to give up one of the three prongs. Otherwise, I felt like I was going to burn out, and so I chose to give up officiating. But back in those days, in the 70s, when I was in high school, the mid to late 70s, I was part of a group of passionate officials that, as I was pursuing playing, they were pursuing officiating, and a lot of them, went on to bigger and better things out of our Skokie Adult League officiating forum. That they went to the National Hockey League, and Andy McGullman and Scotty Zelkin, and they went to the IHL, AHL, and Jay Jacobs and Joe Prescott and Mike Carter and Dave Saeta, and so that Skokie Stadium ice rink produced a lot of officials that went on to bigger and better things.
What year did that rink open, Steve? Because I remember when that opened. It was one of the nicer ones, but it was after long after Winnetka had their rink, or they used to call it. Wasn't it like Winfield back in the day? Winnetka was like Winfield, and but I know it's been around forever. I'm kind of surprised. I know at one point you guys were looking at putting in a second sheet of ice. I remember being there when they were there, like walking the property. How come you guys never decided to tee that off and put in a second sheet there? It seems like you guys are busy enough. You've got great public sessions. You've got figure skating. You've got hockey. It seems like you could probably support that in the community.
Yeah, we were pretty much locked into, a real estate problem. If we didn't quite have the land. Once they decided in 1994 to build the fitness center and the administrative offices, that kind of squelched that idea of adding. Actually, it would have been a third rink. Now, if they, the stadium is a facility that has a main sheet and then a studio rink, 100 by 60, and they would have probably had to dip into that studio rink area and do a major, lobotomy on the studio rink, and that was just out of the question. So, and the way that studio ice sheet at the stadium is a great asset to have when it comes to working with classes and mite hockey and private rentals for birthday groups, and so they didn't want to give anything up from that.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I was hoping maybe they'd keep that and have another full sheet that would have been added. But yeah, I know that facility that you guys put in is pretty sizable, and I remember when that was done, it was a pretty big project. And they just completed. Now, tell us a little bit about, because they just remodeled the stadium, at least the ice surface. Why don't you talk about that a little bit, and some of the changes, and
Scott,
what's that?
You stole the big question that I had. That was where I was going to go.
Oh, well, Brad, please rephrase it and ask him.
Well, no. You already got it. But my big thing was going to be, and it's just curiosity. I thought they did this like 10 years ago. I thought they had redone all the circuits and everything. Or was that just the boards and whatnot? We're just going down memory lane in Chicago right now.
Yeah. 10 years ago, we did a lot of cosmetics. We redid the lobby. By the way, you're talking to me like as if I'm still working there, and I am happily retired.
He's retired.
35 years.
Yeah.
But I retired back on May 1st. But when I was there in 2011, the Park District remodeled the lobby. They remodeled the studio rink, and they remodeled the locker rooms. And then what had happened in 2019, we found that mechanically, a lot of the mechanical parts were still original parts, that were over 45 years old. So if you were to walk into the stadium today and and last saw it a year ago, you're not going to see too many cosmetic changes there. Everything that they improved on is all under the floor and in the mechanical room. So that was the big project. It was supposed to happen in 2019, and with some budgetary challenges and then the COVID issue, it was put off until last March, and they completed it in September a few months ago, but they're still waiting to improve. It's operable. People are enjoying the facility. As you and I talked about, Scott, I think they're waiting for a part to bring the heat back into the building.
Yeah, it's now the coldest building in town, okay? It used to be the nicest, most comfortable, almost too warm to play in or to ref in. Never to ref in. Reffing there was always very comfortable. Playing got a little warm once in a while. We used to comment on that on the bench. Now it is freezing in that place, okay? It is bone-chilling cold in there, okay? That is the number one takeaway from everybody that's been there. Like, buckle up your seatbelts. It's going to be cold.
Yeah.
And you just don't expect that.
I advise you to call about that, but it's not me anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, is that the flooring that they put in under the ice surface, is that sand or is that concrete? And has it changed? So it's concrete?
Yeah, it's the subflooring is sand.
Okay.
And on top of the sand and the refrigeration pipes is concrete.
Okay.
And that's how they lay, and then they lay down the water on the concrete.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I always wondered how some of these are done, because I happened to be in, Brad and I were out at Geneva when they were redoing the rink, and it was, you had the sand in it, like the rebar or whatever you'd call it. And it's amazing how big those buildings look when the stands are taken out of there and the surface is just there with, like sand and rebar. It looks, pretty massive, way more massive than just like a hockey rink at that point. So it's kind of an interesting way to see it. If you haven't had a chance to see that before.
They're happy with the final, ice product. They've, the ice is good. The temperature, obviously, as you attest to, is good. They put in new.
No, it's not good, Steve. It's not good.
Well, for making ice, it's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for skating on it, but for making it, it's good.
Yeah.
And then with the new boards and new glass, and they put netting over the seating area.
Yeah.
They reconfigured the penalty box area.
Yeah, that I was happy to see. That is really nice that they glassed in everybody from a safety standpoint. I can't imagine, being a door person in there or, working the scorer's box and sitting over there, basically
So
exposed to everything.
I got a good story just because it's funny about a scorekeeper. I'll never forget this. We used to do men's league over at the old rolling coast, and it was all open on both sides for many years. And there was a scorekeeper in there, and he's doing the men's league, and he had a hat on. And this guy ripped this slap shot down the boards, and it went up and over the boards, right into the benches, and it hit this guy square in the head. I mean, it hit him hard. Like, I felt bad for him, but when it hit him, though, his hat was up there spinning in the air like a cartoon character before it finally hit the ground. I mean, this thing hit him so hard. Like, I felt so bad for the guy, but I'm with you, Scott. I don't understand why they never put anything on those originally, but
Well,
that thing's moving.
We grew up in Rainbow Ice Arena, and if you think it's bad at Skokie or the penalty box situation, picture a rink that has no glass around it, 2 brick walls, a brick wall on one goalie end, a brick wall on the other goalie end, and then the benches are up in the air. So you're not even, it's not like you're seeing from here up. Like, you get up on a bench, like you climb a ladder to sit up there. So you're above everything, which means everybody's wide open to getting whacked. And of course, the penalty, then the corners had no glass, and they had a set of stairs that went out into the alley. So it was like going down a half a flight, like 4 or 5 steps and out the back door into the alley. So it's not as bad as it could be. Steve, do you remember Rainbow Arena?
Scott,
I mean, Rainbow was leaving the scene as I was coming into it. I think I skated there once or twice as a 10-year-old.
Well, Joe Prescott is watching, and he says, Glick's the greatest. And of course, Joe knows what I'm talking about because he certainly was at Rainbow Arena. Trust me. A couple other people, I believe Alan has to say hello because he is your guy and has been for many, many years. And what a great guy Alan is. Always the famous scorekeeper at Skokie and still going strong. So Alan says hello.
Can I say something about Alan? Scott?
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, Alan is a legend. You talk about legends. Alan is a legend at the Stadium.
Yep.
He's synonymous with the Stadium Ice Arena. But the Stadium Ice Arena is going to be 50 years old next year. You asked me the year it was built. It was built in 1973. So 2023 is going to be the 50th anniversary. Do you know that the Stadium Ice Arena, as long as it's been around, we've had 3 clock operators, 2 for youth hockey exclusively. We've very rarely, on the very rare occasion, have we had to recruit a parent to work the scoreboard for the youth games. We had Mike Astor for 24 years.
Wow.
And then taking over for Mike Astor was Alan, who's been doing it for, 25 years.
That's
going
amazing.
on 26 years. And then we had, as you remember, Scott, Virginia Passaway.
Virginia, rest in peace. Virginia was great, man. She was Virginia a workhorse of the men's league.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. Good people.
She started as a coach, coaching her son's team in the men's league, adult league. And then when he stopped playing, I went to her, and she was so passionate about the league and her Firebirds team that I had asked her, how about doing the games for me and being my assistant director and sitting in, and she did the score sheet as Alan ran the clock.
Yeah.
So we've had Mike Astor, Alan Gould for all the youth games, Alan for the adult league games after Virginia, and Virginia for the adult league, and then Mike Astor before Virginia. We've had only 3 scorekeepers in 50 years.
It's amazing.
Of operations, and that I don't think any other rink, not only in Illinois,
no,
probably in the country,
in the world, probably not.
In the world,
yeah.
And Mike Astor, Virginia, and Alan also will PA announce games, and for the youth games, those kids, no matter what age, those kids had a little jump in their step on the following shift after they scored a goal when they hear their name announced
Yeah,
on
that's
the
for
PA
sure.
for every game, not just tournaments or special event games. It could be, just an ordinary house league game. Alan's on the microphone announcing their names.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a midget game there a couple weeks ago when I did skate in the new building for the first time, and Alan wasn't there. And I literally, when we had the ice break, I had to Facebook him and go, "Are you okay? Like, why are you not here?" I guess he didn't have it on his schedule for that. He was there for the men's league game that night, but I was in a panic, like something's not right. If Alan's, and nobody knew how to run that scoreboard, nobody could put the names up. The coach finally from Skokie got in there and put the template on to do the names and all that good stuff, and got a couple parents to do the job. But yeah, it's definitely not the same.
This season?
That was this season. I was like, wow, I'm like, I got to make sure Alan's okay, and he responded right away, which was great. So we knew he was okay.
Probably forgot to give him the game.
Exactly, and then we saw him for the men's league game afterwards, so it was all good. Yeah, that's something we should probably talk about because the men's league is synonymous with the running clock rule or no running clock rule. That I'm sure you want to tell that story, Steve.
Well, as some viewers know, you were a captain of the hot mix team that skated in our league at the stadium.
Yep.
And your team was, similar to the Blackhawks are going through this year. You were kind of rebuilding. Let's say that.
Always rebuilding.
Always rebuilding. And you saw, the puck enter your net quite a bit in your games. And you came to our meeting, preseason meeting, and made the very qualified argument that, everybody's paying the same amount of money for a 90-minute game slot, and why should our games go to running clock and only play for 60 minutes when we're paying the same amount of money? So we put it up for vote, and it was passed. So we took the running clock rule out of our adult league. It was the option of the losing team to go with the running clock.
Right.
The rule still exists today. And
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
15, 16 years late, in the future, now Scott's roughing in the league.
Now, here's some karma, okay? Here comes some karma, because karma's a fickle little thing, okay? And no good deed goes unpunished, because the game I was there for after that game, when I didn't see Alan before, Alan got there. What was the final score of that game, do you think, guys? Anybody want to guess?
Well, you asked me that question, and I went on a limb and I said 10-0 or 15-2.
Yeah, if you multiply that by 3 or 4, we might be close. That game ended 30-9. 30-9. That's 42 center ice face-offs before we have a puck out of play, an offside, an icing, or a goalie making a save and freezing the puck. 42 center ice face-offs.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, good job, Scott.
Thank you.
Way to ruin that for everybody. I mean,
Well, Steve and I were talking. The reason back then the league was not as, we didn't have guys going out and recruiting every week trying to get to the next level to make sure they could get a championship. And it was friendly, and it was guys that just wanted to have a workout, basically. A lot of us were coming from the city, going out there and just, playing some hockey. We really didn't care. It's like it was almost pickup for us. But, it got more and more competitive. And as it gets more and more competitive, it gets uglier and uglier. And, now I understand why you need the 5-goal running clock. So I am officially on board with the 5-goal running clock, in case anybody has any questions about that. So.
You know what? I got a suggestion, Scott.
Yeah.
So what you should do is you should put a team together, go back into the league, and suggest the reversal of that.
Yeah. Okay. And how much is the league fee now? Like $3,500 or something like that? If you want to write the check as a sponsor, I'd be happy to put that team in there. And can we talk about what night we'll be playing, Steve, so we can be consistent?
Yeah, not anymore.
Yeah, I know.
reminded you I'm retired.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
know.
But
Lucky you.
and I also want to go on record that most of the losing teams do take the running clock. There's always that one or unfortunately you had that one or two teams that didn't in that
Yeah,
particular game.
yeah, yeah. It's never good. You know
But
how that
you
works.
also can wave off all the icings and you know
No, you can't cheat the game, Steve.
Nope.
You can't cheat the game.
no
You gotta
okay
do the game. It's just the
Yeah,
way
you
it
gotta
is. You
have
gotta
to
have
score
some
60
integrity.
goals.
That was the thing that used to upset me the most. That's what got me into reffing in the first place, because you'd show up at your game and first three icings get waved off. It's like, wait, it's a 0-0 game. We're 4 minutes into the game and you've waved off everything that you can possibly wave at this point. That never ended up being good for anybody. So,
no
you
and
got to have some
I have
integrity.
a
You got to
problem
go
with
out
that
there and do the game like
0-0
you're
game.
supposed to. So I'm
Okay.
not a fan of that. That's how you got me into reffing in the first place.
Good for you. Good for you.
At first,
A score of
so
30-9. I wouldn't necessarily refer to that as a game, but
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a football score, basically. 30. It was almost a
yeah,
basketball score, okay?
yeah.
yeah, that was that. I don't think I've ever had one go that high, but
Yeah. I mean,
all right.
honestly, like 18, I think that's the worst, probably one of the worst scores I've ever
Well,
seen is about 18 goals, but 30
the
goals in a
question
game.
the question I have is, did the other goalie leave, or did he
No.
let the puck go by him 30 times?
He let the puck
I
go by him 30 times, and he
I
actually
had
wasn't
that
a bad
question
goalie.
too.
I would have left.
And the reason the other team ended, I'm thinking this other team, how are they going to get 9 goals? They actually had a guy that was really good, like played some really high level hockey. He put up most of those goals himself against a good team, and he wasn't done. He was like, he was going to keep grinding. If he could get it to, 15 goals, he would have, I'm sure. But, the other
Well,
team could
rumor
have
has
probably
it
run it
that
up some
goalie
more.
now has a permanent twitch. He's
Well,
got a tick that he
No,
can't.
no, he's got a permanent burn. He's got a 3rd-degree burn on the back of his neck from the red light going on. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Steve, let's talk about. We talked a little bit about your officiating. We know you're, the hockey director, but you had a pro hockey career there for a short period of time, didn't you?
Well, here's what happened in 1988. Okay, I was a year into working at the Skokie Park District, and this was during preseason. The Milwaukee Admirals general manager Phil Whitliff called me, and he knew we had a competitive adult league. We had a competitive Czech league, and he asked if I could find any goalies that would be willing to come up there and fill in and wait while the Vancouver Canucks were figuring out who they were going to send down as the second goalie. They had already sent down one goalie, but there was still a battle going on for the second spot, or the permanent spot with the Canucks. So I did make some calls, and I tried to get some guys that would be available, and needless to say, I was unsuccessful. So I called Phil back, and I said, at that time I was out of competitive hockey, but I was still putting the goalie pads on, skating with the Blackhawk alumni who
Oh, yeah.
skated at our rink at the time. And I said, if you don't mind, an out of shape goaltender that maybe can still luckily cover the 5-hole once in a while, I'll go up there and do it. The Park District allowed me to do that. So he said, sure, come on up. You're probably not going to play anyway. So I went ahead and told Phil I'd be up there I had to go up there on a Wednesday morning to Milwaukee, and they were going to play a preseason game Wednesday night in Peoria. And so I got up there Wednesday morning and practiced with the team. I put on all my 1979 goalie equipment, and they got it. This is 1988, so in fact, I think one of my goalie pads was still leaking some beer here. But I actually, I have to say, in all modesty, I was playing pretty well in the practice, and I think what had happened was I was fired up for it, and these guys had all been sent down, so they were kind of bumming a little bit, and we kind of met in the middle, and I felt like I belonged, and So sure enough, we hop on the bus and we start trekking down to Peoria. And one of the goalie at the time that was just sent down by Vancouver, his name was Troy Gamble. He looks at me and he says, "You look really familiar to me," on the bus as we're driving down there. And I said, "Well, I maybe you read some of my newspaper work. I was writing for the hockey publication at the time, Let's Play Hockey, and it had my picture in there." He said, "No, that's not it." And I said, "Well, maybe you're confusing me with my brother, because my brother, who was also a goalie, was playing Canadian Junior at the time." He said, "No, that's not it." And then he looks at me again and he says, "I know where I remember you from. You were my goalie coach at the Can-Am Hockey School in Guelph, Ontario, back when I was 14 years old."
Wow.
I said,
Wow.
"Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was
Yeah.
there." So now I was, teaching him when he was 14, and now I'm backing him up, when he's 21. But yeah, so we get to the Peoria Civic Center, and who's working the game but a couple of Illinois guys, Derek Martin and Jay Jacobs, and along with a guy from St. Louis. So it was an interesting dynamic. Is the coach at the time? He as we're taken to the bench, he looks at me. He goes, "Hey, Glick, that's your goal crease over there," pointing to the end of the bench. And Troy, we had shut him out 7-0. Peoria at the time was the farm club to St. Louis Blues, and they had some tough guys. They had Kelly Chase, they had Tony Twist, and I jokingly said, "If we have to empty the benches, I want Twist." And thank goodness we didn't have to empty the bench.
Right.
But that was my emergency goalie story, which back in those days, it went on, but you didn't hear much about it because there was no social media. Nowadays, it's quite common, to see a guy not only have to put the pads on, but to get into the game.
Yeah, they had the guy that played at Johnny's in the men's league that played for the Hawks, and I think he got a W or close to it. And there was a Zamboni driver somewhere in another market.
In Toronto.
Toronto had to get dressed.
He beat his own, and he beat Toronto. Shocking.
Stories.
Yeah, I mean those are the greatest hockey stories ever. I'm sorry, I just think that's those are the underdog stories that you root for, and who cannot be happy for them,
So
for the bad thing about
come
that?
up with 8 saves, I think it was, in 14 minutes left in the game, and preserve the 6-2 win.
Yeah.
To go in there, not only freaking out in front of 20,000 fans, but to go in there cold.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I later talked to Scott about the experience, and when he got the nod in the dressing room, once one of the 2 goalies goes down, they make him dress and wait around in equipment. When the training, the stick boy, I think he told me, went in there and said, "You got to go in." I said, "What was your first thought?" He looked at his 2 sticks from Johnny's and that he uses in the Johnny's league, and he said, "All right, which one of these is less broken?" And he grabbed the one, and then as he's making his way from the locker room onto the ice, skating to the crease, he told me that he was thinking that he had asked his wife to sharpen his skates, and I guess she put it off, and that's all he. He wasn't worried about Liney or Scheifele. He was thinking about his wife and not getting his skates sharpened.
I would have thought he would be thinking about throwing up, to be honest with you, because nerves would be through the roof. Okay, but that's the adrenaline, which is always good, and that's what keeps you in those games. But it's.
And the first save he made. I mean, you should get him on here to tell these stories. I don't mean to steal his limelight, but
no,
the first save he made was off the cuff of his catch glove. I think Bufflin snapped one off from about 30 feet out. And he also I had the opportunity to sit down with him. His biggest regret was not snatching that.
Yeah.
He wanted that to be a glove save and force a face-off.
Yeah.
But and then the Toronto Zamboni driver story is even more remarkable. That was on Hockey Night in Canada, and to beat his hometown team on Hockey Night in Canada on national TV.
Boy, you can't even sit at home and think about that one and dream it up. They're like, okay, what can we come up with for a good story? Oh, let's go. Let's get in a game at Hockey Night in Canada and beat my home team. Okay.
Crazy. Just
Yeah,
a crazy story.
You know.
Yeah.
And
you know the only bad thing for them afterwards, for those backup emergency goaltenders, is once they play in that game, that's it. Their gig's over. Because they signed a contract, they can no longer be the emergency backup goaltender anymore. So that kind of sucks.
So you are one and done, that you can't ever do it again, that you can't be brought back in. It's a special contract, so it's like you're signing your rights away. So you'd have to come back as an actual real player at that point. They'd have to. Could they do that? They could give you a contract to come in and get on a practice team, or no practice squad.
So the only reason I know that I know anything about it is we had a young man come here right before COVID. He came into a referee seminar. He was like where he was supposed to be. He's asking all these questions. He could skate. He played goalie for Finlandia up in Michigan. Mm-hmm. And he calls me up like, I don't know, a month into the hockey season, and he goes, hey, just so you know, I'm not going to be in the development program anymore. And I'm like, oh, why? That's really disappointing. Oops. And he goes, well, I just got offered the emergency goaltender spot in L.A. for the Kings. I was like, yep, that's probably a pretty good reason to move to L.A. and give it a whirl. So, but yeah, he had mentioned, he's like, because I was like, what does that entail? He goes, oh, well, you just go to the the rink, you're there, and then, you work your normal job, and you're only there for home games. And he goes, and if you play, that's it. So I would think he had some insight, unless somebody knows differently, but that's what I was informed of.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess it makes sense because it would prohibit teams from, constantly going back to somebody and not having to pay them and basically have an extra spot on their team. So it makes,
well,
I get it.
I've also heard they don't get paid for their performance. And to be the emergency goalie.
They're interns. They're interns. You get $8 an hour.
Yeah. In fact, Scott Foster, he spoke at one of our Blackhawk alumni meetings a few years ago. And I guess, they allowed him to keep the jersey, the sweater. But
he has to pay the taxes on it.
Yeah. And I think that sweater or something from his paraphernalia was brought over to the Hall of Fame, because he may have been the first ever emergency goalie to play in an NHL game. Certainly
That's
before
cool.
David Ayers. But the other thing he said that, those two broken down goalie sticks that he had, he was most worried about, and I guess the Blackhawks arranged to get him a dozen sticks after playing in that game. So that was nice.
I would hope they got him more than a dozen sticks. Okay, maybe maybe a case of beer to go with the dozen sticks.
Well, and the good thing is, a dozen sticks in men's league goes a long way.
Yeah. You're gonna get a few seasons out of a dozen sticks in men's league. That's for sure. The beer, you might need more than a dozen.
I heard he also, his first game back at Johnny's after playing against the Winnipeg Jets, he got lit up pretty good.
Yeah, because everybody wants to beat him at that point.
Defense said, "Hey, he's so good, we don't need to back check tonight. Let him get some shots." And I'm sure all the other guys couldn't wait to light him up. Yeah. Joe asks, ask Coach about Reggie Fleming.
Reggie became a very dear friend.
Well, you first of all, you better explain who Reggie Fleming is, because we do have some younger viewers.
I'll be the one to point it out. It was Reggie Fleming.
Well, Reggie passed away about 8 or 9 years ago, I want to say now.
Yeah.
Was a Blackhawk player in the original six. Was known for scoring the game-winning goal in the 1961 Stanley Cup championship game when the Blackhawks beat the Red Wings, and then stayed in the hockey community here in Illinois. Um, Later, actually stayed on the ice and skated not only with our alumni skates, but before that, he skated in the Skokie Adult League games back in the 70s. And those games that I officiated back in those days, um, he was a very respectful former Blackhawk player, but there was an opposing player that was a real yapper, and lined up against Reggie for some faceoffs, and not only gave it to Reggie with the generic stuff, but got a little personal towards Reggie. Yeah. And on one particular faceoff, this guy from the opposing team said a little too much, and Reggie, I guess, checked out the durability of the guy's skates by breaking a stick over his ankles off the faceoff. And
he's lucky he didn't break something else, because Reggie was one bad boy. Okay, yeah. Reggie. Nobody messed with Reggie Fleming. Trust me.
I felt for Reggie, for that, for taking all the crap from this kid. I went up to Reggie and I said, Reggie, I'm going to have to give you 2 for that one. And he probably should have gotten 5. But anyway, the kid was not injured, or the guy was not injured, but it definitely surprised him. And Reggie walked off the ice at that moment and put his hands up and said, "That's it, I've had it." Yeah. And I think he stopped playing in organized leagues after that. But he was, active with our with our Blackhawk alumni, and skated in the very first ever benefit game that we hosted at the Stadium Ice Arena in 1988, and was just beloved, just a great down-to-earth, genuine guy. Got into some businesses. He loved to play the ponies. If back in the 90s, if you went to Arlington Park Racetrack or any of the racetracks, it was inevitable that you'd run into Reggie Fleming. Got into the T-shirt business and made some T-shirts for our camps at the school. But he was a great, great guy, and also played for the Chicago Cougars after his NHL career. So he retired from the NHL, had a great career not only with the Blackhawks, but played with the New York Rangers, and then got into the WHA and played with the Chicago Cougars. Yeah.
David says Skokie Stadium, Steve and Alan are legendary. Erica. So.
And yes, Scott, I do know who the Cougars are. David. Just so you know.
Yeah, I would hope you no, it's not the team that plays down at Fifth Third, by the way. It's not the same team.
Yeah.
No, the Kaiser family owned the Cougars back in the day, and we actually, when I played for the junior Cougars at one point. That was like like minor Hawks. It was different totally, but they used to play out of the amphitheater, and they used to have teams come in there and play, like between periods. You'd play a quick game as like entertainment for the fans or whatever, which was when you're a little kid, it's kind of fun. It's cool, but yeah, that was.
Scott, do you remember the Randhurst Ice Arena?
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was 2 sheets, right? Do you remember where the Cardinals used to play in Oakbrook, where it's the Drury Lane Theater now, but that used to be a double sheet as well. I can't think of what that was called. It wasn't Oakbrook, but it was something. But Drury Lane was actually a hockey rink back in the 70s, I guess, early 70s.
That Randhurst Ice Arena.
I prefer it to have the all-you-can-eat.
So where would Randhurst was off Euclid Road, if I'm not mistaken. You went past the forest preserves, like almost like you're going to go to Mount Prospect now, somewhere in that area.
Right.
And I don't remember where because it's been so many years, but I do remember that.
It was off of Euclid and Rand Road, where the shopping center is currently.
Okay.
Right now, I think it's a Home Depot.
That's what somebody said. So. Okay.
I think
very cool.
But the reason I brought it up was the legendary story was that the Chicago Cougars, they underpredicted their success for, I think it was the 75 season, maybe 74, but I'm not sure the season. But they made it all the way to the AFCO Cup, the WHA's version of the Stanley Cup, and unfortunately, they didn't expect to go that far, or people that ran the
Huh.
amphitheater didn't. So they had to play the AFCO Cup at the largest youth rink, community rink that we could find here in the Chicago area, and it was the Randers Ice Arena, which I think held about 3,000 people. It was, I think, the only rink that had a hanging scoreboard at center ice at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their opponent was the Houston Aeros, which featured Gordie Howe.
Gordie Howe. Yeah.
Gordie Howe and his sons, Mark and Marty.
Mark.
So
that's right.
yeah. So the legendary story goes that the Randers Ice Arena, which was right there with any other local Illinois hockey rink, like the other 20 rinks at the time, hosted the AFCO Cup with the Chicago Cougars versus the Houston Aeros.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
And
wouldn't have that.
Friday was the referee.
What? Oh, who was Bill Friday?
Since we're on the ref room here. Yeah,
Okay.
Bill Friday, the legendary.
Bill Friday. Yeah.
I know he had some of the games there, and he was an active official within the WHA.
Well,
time.
he was in the NHL. Did
Sure.
he pull out of the NHL and move strictly to the WHA? Or did those guys work both back then? I don't think they did. It would be
they
pick
did.
one or the
They
other
did.
because they
WHA.
weren't exactly in love with each other. But the WHA pulled a lot of the really great players out of the NHL with sizable contracts. Look,
Yeah.
hey, we lost
And
Bobby Hull
Bill Friday
to.
he was a very charismatic NHL official, and I think that played a part in him getting offered to leave the NHL and go to the WHA.
Yeah.
So he put on I think it was the red and black referee sweater at the time. They had the referee. Joe would know this better than I would, but I think rather than wearing orange armbands, they had red and black.
Well, they did.
While the linesmen
Oh, okay.
wore
So
black and white.
okay, I don't remember them having a double colored jersey, like a red and black jersey. I just remember that they, originally in the AHL, it was one armband and it was red, and that was it. And then they went to the two, and then they went to the orange. But I remember the one armband.
I think they were red and blue, but hang on.
For well, if you watch the movie Slapshot, what color? One of the referees, when they have one of those fight scenes before the game starts, he's got a multicolored jersey on. But I don't think that's WHA, but that's probably where something like that originated from.
Yeah. You're right. That's,
Yeah.
I'm trying to listen to
I'm
the
looking at.
stinking
I'm
song.
looking.
Steve Drews says Rush also played at Randhurst, so there you go.
Wow. Oh, really?
Yeah, it had blue trim, and then it was red and white.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right
And
now.
Joe said Bill and Vern Buffy left the National Hockey League to officiate the WHA also. So thanks for that history lesson there, Joe. Appreciate it. Yeah, very cool. So, Steve, we've talked a lot about years past here in hockey. I know you stopped coaching. What do you think of some of the way hockey has changed? Do you like the direction it's headed? Do you miss certain things? If you could change something, is there something you'd change at this point in time that you're not crazy about? Or maybe there's something you just absolutely love you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, just like retiring as a player, I think the first thing you miss most of all is the camaraderie. I guess I would have been categorized as a player's coach. I enjoyed, socializing with the players in the locker room, telling them all hockey war stories like we just, talked about. And not only with the players, but, with the younger age groups, with the parents. So I miss that most and foremost. But one of the things that, I miss coaching the way it was 20, 25, 30 years ago. I mean, the last 5 years of my coaching career, working with the kids, I kind of lost that connection. I hadn't changed much. I did have to make some adjustments, but I think it was just the kids that they had so many more elements to their life and distractions. And, I used to tell a clean joke in the locker room, for example, the kids loved them 25 years ago, but the most recent team wouldn't laugh at that same joke because they probably saw it on the internet or whatever. It's just
well, not even the comedians are allowed to tell jokes anymore, Steve. So.
Or maybe I just lost the delivery touch.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
Use that as an example. I was kind of just, I was losing my connection, with the kids, with the players. Again, there were a lot more distractions. The game itself, I think it's heading in the right direction. I don't think we're experiencing that as much in Chicago lately because, we were spoiled between like 2009 through 2017 when the Blackhawks were winning their Stanley Cups. Hockey was just booming here in the Chicago area market. Now it's kind of leveled off, but I think if you were to go to Florida or go to Dallas or go to some of the other markets where the teams are really doing well in the NHL, you'll see most of the USA Hockey registrations coming from those places, including adult hockey.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's amazing when we do have some of the adult tournaments that travel that come into town, and there's a number of teams that come in from the southern states and out west and everywhere else, and they definitely there's short rinks there, as we hear from coaches when they come in. They don't have enough rinks, they don't have enough referees. It's boom city for them. I mean, fortunately, we're really lucky because we have so many rinks here and so many teams and so much good hockey. But yeah, it's important. The Hawks are kind of the reason why we're doing well. But if the Hawks don't kind of start hitting the playoffs a couple times here and get kids to continue that excitement, I don't know what it'll mean in 5 or 6 years, because we went through that with hockey before, when hockey was kind of on the downside, when it wasn't doing well here. And then things turned around and it was a boom. And then, when the Cubs won a World Series, it seemed like a lot of kids probably made the switch to baseball because they were all excited over the Cubs and they want to play ball or whatever. There's a lot riding on hockey here with all the investment and all these properties. The Hawks, it's important for them to do well. It's important for the Wolves to do well, and our hockey programs thrive as a result of that.
I agree. And kudos to the Chicago Wolves. They've been here 27 years now, I think it is.
Yeah.
Doing the math, and
sounds right.
And they've, I think it's a different audience that they're trying to get. You'll see some Blackhawk jerseys in the stands when you go to a Wolves game, but you'll also see a lot of Wolves jerseys, and a Wolves fan may not necessarily be a diehard Blackhawk fan. I think you'll see more of a hockey fan attending the Wolves games than you would at the United Center, where they're all wearing their Blackhawk jerseys and they're Blackhawks fans.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I heard Pops last week as I was watching the show mention how the rule book back in the earlier days in the 60s for amateur hockey used to be the NHL rule book, and they would just rip out the pages on fighting, and there wouldn't be fighting. I would like to see that come back. I would love to see the amateur game take on the rules of the NHL, the offsides, the icings, the penalties, with of course the exception of fighting, because I think that's the marketing tool. That's the learning experience for the kids to learn the game by watching NHL hockey.
Brad, what's your take on that?
Well, the one thing I can tell you right now is guys in the NHL screw up hybrid icing, so good luck teaching that to the average official. Yeah. So that would be the number one thing, unfortunately, and that's just it's a difficult concept to understand if you don't know what touch icing is, so it gets real complex to describe it, but if you happen to know it, it becomes a little bit easier. But to some people, they've never even seen touch icing nowadays. So let alone now try and get them to figure out who's going to get to the puck first in that situation. Yowzer. I mean, the NHL guys, I've seen it, and I'm not putting them down by any means, but, you'll have a guy and he'll be so focused on that puck going down the ice that, and the guy's racing, he'll put his arm up and blow the whistle, but the puck never got to the goal line.
Yeah.
Like it didn't even make it there. Like it stopped 10 feet short and they're hitting the whistle because that's where they raced to. So, it's one more thing that referees just wouldn't, I don't think would be able to grasp. And it's just like, not being able to change lines on an icing. An average 14-year-old kid is not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's just one of those, we have to put in the limitations to what the officials are able to learn. So that would be the only thing.
Yeah. I mean, even the college rules get a little more challenging on certain things, especially like not being able to make the line change. What about, you've got now with the US or with NHL, they have basically the break the plane offsides versus having skate contact. I think they put that into effect. That would be another tough one to sell. And, now you get to sell it to the coaches. At least now you can at least look like, does he have a skate on? Because you have guys that would be technically onside in an NHL game and they're offside at a USA hockey game. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see, offsides be uniform at every level of the game. I don't see.
Well, do you want delayed offsides like we had, or do you want the instant offsides?
I like the delayed offsides, keep the game moving. I think that should be at every level. I know the argument had been, and I discussed this with a few USA hockey guys when they first came up with the, bringing back the automatic offsides. They said that they want the defenseman, when leaving the offensive zone, to handle the puck under pressure. And it's all about skill in the neutral zone, handling that puck under pressure. But, the other side of the coin, and of course it's always a two-sided coin, if you allow that defenseman to dump the puck in and to clear the zone and you keep the clock moving and the game moving, you could reestablish a forecheck. So now you don't have the offensive defenseman at the point, under pressure in the neutral zone. You have the breakout defenseman, having to deal with the forecheck. So, it's kind of the same concept, just, the other way around. And plus it keeps the game moving, which I think everybody was in favor of.
Well, they keep telling us it's making the game faster. I don't know how it makes it faster. I don't know mathematically how you can add a stoppage to the game and tell me the game is moving faster if you didn't have a stoppage. So that one I just don't understand. Sell me on something, but that is not the logic you can use on me. Have I seen players starting to develop and getting better at this? Absolutely. I think even, we saw it at the AAA level where you now see the players that can really control the puck and they manage to stay on sides pretty darn well. And now you're even seeing in Tier 2 where it's starting to take its effect and they're much better at it than they were before. A year has gone by, some of the players have grown up with it. So, but the argument that a lot of the ex-NHL players that are coaches make is, their kids are trying to get ready to go to juniors and they're never going to know how to break the puck out until they get to juniors, and then they're going to have to learn. They would like those players to have those skills now and not be drafted into a junior program and now have to learn that skill. So, we work with what they give us. Fair enough?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more pressure for the defenseman in his defensive zone having to deal with a forecheck than a defenseman, in the neutral zone who has the whole, half of the ice behind him that he could, rag the puck to, or, even today you see some defensemen, pass it back to their goalie. So, yeah. I don't know. It sounded to me like there was a compromise made, like they may have had this, strong argument on both sides of the room, and then they came up with some sort of a compromise. But,
well, there had to have been compromise because high schools get to keep the rules that they had. So, they got their compromise that they wanted.
Yeah,
so
that's what I'm saying. So,
yeah.
You know, I'd like to see more uniformity in the offsides rule anyway.
I mean, my personal opinion, if it's house league, why wouldn't we keep the play moving? I'm in favor, and I'll go out on a limb right now. I think like house league and maybe a tier up or a tier up from that could be no check, so that you don't have the 200-pound, 14-year-old going around trying to destroy the 90-pound 14-year-old. That he can enjoy the game just as much as the guys that play men's league that don't want to go out there and get clobbered so they can go to work the next day. So there's a lot of things we can argue about on that. And
You know what happened with your last idea, right? Was
which
it 15 years ago when you were playing men's league? Let's keep your ideas to yourself. All right.
No, I'm a proponent of that. I think, I feel bad for the 90-pound or 70-pound soaking wet kid that's out there up against the kid that's 6'4" and 200 pounds that's the same age. And, he's going to get crushed all the time. And, he just loves the game of hockey. He wants to play, but physically he's just going to get abused out there. And, I'd like to see those guys be able to just love the sport and enjoy it and play it for the rest of their life. Brad, you're as referee in chief and being around hockey as long as you have, what's the drop-off rate, just out of curiosity, from the time where you have guys that are peewees going to bantams? I'm sure we have a lot of guys that do drop out because they don't want to take the physical play. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's just something that they choose not to do. Either they can't do it or don't want to do it. But I'm sure there's a drop-off rate with hockey as we go up those tiers because of that.
That I don't know, but I think every sport naturally drops off at around that area.
Yeah.
Because everybody's getting ready for high school.
Yeah.
So now they're going to only play one sport, or,
yeah.
Now we're going to get the college scholarship on this one.
Right.
Okay,
girls come into play, having fun comes into play, other hobbies come into play, whatever the case may be. I get that.
Yeah.
But,
I also think the hitting does.
Well, I'd just like to see some of these guys that, can enjoy the game for the rest of their life, like a lot of us have. I mean, we survived hockey. We grew up playing check all the time. We even played men's league check at one point in our careers. But, that's just something that I've learned how to skate. That'll make a difference, right?
Learn to skate faster. That'll make a difference for you. There you go.
Yeah.
Look at Patrick Kane.
Or pick your head up, as we like to tell players. Pick your head up. Right. All right, Steve. What else you got for us before we wrap it up? And anything else you want to cover?
No. I've for those of you that I've dealt with throughout my 35 career at the Skokie Stadium, I miss everybody, and I'm happily retired. Enjoying my retirement life, and I want to thank everybody for a great 35 plus years at the involved in this game.
Oh, great! Well, you've
And
done a major part for it.
Brad, I mean, this forum that you have going, every, weekly, every Monday is phenomenal. I think it's a great way to get to talk about the game in a relaxed atmosphere. Rather than a boardroom.
Yeah, well, appreciate that, and we've
trying.
had fun doing it. Trust me. We've had some great guests on the show, including yourself, and we cover a lot of topics, and we have a blast with it. That's all I can say. I know Brad's enjoyed it for a couple of years. I hope everybody else loves it as much as we do. It's a game we love.
I don't know. There's a critic right there. Check it out. Put that guy's comment up. I don't know who it is.
Which one? The very last one?
Okay. The very last one.
I very much appreciate the captioning. It's made this JV high school basketball game palatable.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but okay. That's why they're a Facebook user and they're not logged in, okay? Because otherwise you'd pop up and put your name up here. So I don't know. Anthony chimed in here. Let's see what it would eliminate some of the confusion from parents who think that NHL rules apply to all youth hockey. Well, that's a very good point, Anthony, and you're right, because people, listen to or watch a hockey game on TV and they listen to the commentators. Their job is to try to spur your interest on and talk about the rules that affect the play that's going on out there. I mean, We have some local broadcast games, and the one thing they love to do is just rip on the officials all the time. They don't even know what they're talking about, but that doesn't stop them from doing it because that's
those
part of
guys
what
are
they
my
do.
Favorites.
Yeah, I know.
I enjoy them.
Yeah.
Send them to my game.
Yeah, exactly. So that's about that's about it. And anything else from you, Brad, before we go?
No, I don't think so. I think
You're all good?
Thank God Thanksgiving's over. So on to the next one.
Pack a couple LBs on, or did you work the whole time?
I refed. I worked 6 games, but I'm not a big eater at Thanksgiving, so it doesn't really matter to me. And I have a real problem with my food touching. So if people know that, I mean, I'm a military.
You want a military meal. You want it segregated.
I do. So it does. I can't pile onto my plate. So it does just.
I'm not good with buffets because I overeat. I need a portion controlled meal basically. All right. Enough of our personal eating habits here. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back Monday next week, 5:30 p.m. If you'd like to support the channel, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/refroom. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you'll know when we come on. You'll get a notification, and we appreciate you guys for all the comments and all that good stuff. Give us a thumbs up. If you haven't done so, we'd appreciate that. And with that being said, I am Scott Smokin SIlz, our special guest, Steve Glickman, and our referee-in-chief, Brad Baumruck. So thanks for joining us right here on the Ref Room, and we'll see you next Monday at 5:30 Chicago time. Peace out, everybody. Have a good one.